Let's say every human being has a certain amount of storage space or a certain stress capacity, much like on your phone. When you are stressed, when you are overwhelmed, you have maxed out that capacity. Okay, the stress exceeds the amount of storage space that you have. And in this case, you can increase your capacity, right? So buy more space, or you can remove certain files, certain apps, certain stressors to reduce your stress load. In this video, we'll be talking about the different ways that you can increase your overall stress resilience and decrease your stress load, because stress is one of the most prevalent underlying factors to so many diseases. When we think of cardiovascular issues, when we think of autoimmunity or inflammatory diseases, even people who are trying to conceive struggle with fertility for both men and women, we need to consider whether stress is an underlying factor or a contributor. Rest just so happens to be one of the tools in my kit as a naturopath when it comes to addressing stress. There are multiple ways to rest because there are multiple forms of stress. So when it comes to rest, we'll be discussing 7 different types of rest that you can incorporate into your lifestyle. Identify which kind of rest would be more relevant to you and try to apply 1 or 2 things for the next 2 weeks. Let's take a look at how we can use the 7 types of rest to address our stress. The first kind of rest that we'll be talking about is mental rest, because most people understand stress as something that's purely mental, the way that you think or things that are happening in your head, which is valid. When you have a high load of stress on your mind, you might find that your mind is busy. You might find that you have a lot to think about. Maybe you're studying or your workload is mentally draining. This can be when you need mental rest the most. Your mind is tired, it's overwhelmed. You can make this practical by giving yourself short breaks. You can schedule breaks. If you're working or you're studying, stop, look around, step away from the desk, step away from the work, stop problem solving for a while, and then when you're ready, you can get back to it. Use your lunchtime as a break. Okay, try to stay away from working while you're eating. Enjoy your food, eat mindfully, avoid work talk, and just focus on the present. If your mind is keeping you up, it's so busy you feel like you can't fall asleep, the mental rest you might need is to pour all that energy, all that mental energy out. Write down your thoughts, write down your ideas, put it out on paper, or even record yourself talking. Send voice notes to people, talk to a person. It doesn't even have to be recorded, it just has to be out of your brain and into the world. Sometimes the mental stress comes from the fact that you do not have a to-do list, you do not have a planner. Everything you need to do is just stuck in your mind, and that can make you feel worried, because what if you forget something? And it takes a lot of mental energy to constantly be thinking about what you might have to do next, what you might forget, reminding yourself over and over again. Help yourself by putting it out on paper. Write down what you need to do, mind map your ideas, get a planner, and just write down your schedule so that all of the thoughts that you have is not vaulted in your mind. Now, there is a deeper layer to mental rest, because sometimes mental rest does require a mindset shift. Different ways that we think can actually lead to mental exhaustion. If you grew up hearing certain things about yourself that's not good, people telling you you're not good enough, or people making you feel like you need to shrink yourself, or if you've gone through certain life events that distorted your image of yourself or your future or other people, the world, these are things that would require the effort of changing the way you think. Okay, and this can take longer than 2 weeks, so this can take more time. Therapy, counseling, these are things that can give you some form of mental rest, because they challenge your mindset, they challenge your patterns of thinking and even your coping mechanisms. Meditating, right, focusing on things that are true, these are things that can give you some kind of rest from the loops or the cycles of thinking that you have that may not be the healthiest. Sometimes the mind gets tired from fighting lies that maybe you have created or maybe you have absorbed from other people. Visualization can be really helpful, because by visualizing things, you are actually imagining positives, and that can be a break or a form of rest for negative thinking. The next form of rest we'll be talking about is physical rest. And this is probably how we think of rest. Most times when a person says rest, we are like, oh yes, bed, sleep. Physical rest is good for physical stress. So if you have been moving around a lot, if you have been tense, if you have been working out, physical rest can also help the mind. You can communicate to your mind through your body. Sleep is definitely a form of physical rest. However, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that keeping a healthy lifestyle as a whole is a form of physical rest because it's building your resilience. It just makes it easier for us to cope with mental stresses. In one of my previous videos, I spoke about ranking the different pillars of health, making sure that your pillars of health are covered. Because imagine if your stress load comes from nutrient deficiencies, high caffeine intake, sleep deprivation, constantly snacking on food that does more harm to the body than good. This increases our stress load without us even noticing. And if we're being completely honest, physical rest is typically one of the easiest forms of rest we can give ourselves. Beyond covering the fundamentals of physical rest, like sleeping well, eating nutritious food, and regular movement, there is a more enhanced form of physical rest, such as going out for a massage or foam rolling or stretching. These are things that make the body feel more rested. It's kind of like an active type of rest. I just started with the fundamentals because what good is it for you to do some yoga or stretch if you're not sleeping well? You're sleeping 5 hours a night. So first cover the basis and then look to how you can improve the other types of physical rest. Supplementing can be useful, especially if you know that you're deficient in certain nutrients. Most people tend to be deficient in a few things. Blood tests can help, but also speaking to a health practitioner can give you some pointers on what nutrients you may be deficient in. In some cases, naturopaths can prescribe you with adaptogens. These are herbs that help the body to adapt to stress, like ginseng or ashwagandha, for example. It's very useful to speak to a health practitioner first because different adaptogens treat different types of stress. The next form of rest we're discussing is emotional rest. Negative emotions are exhausting. Stop running away from your emotions. Trace where the emotion is coming from and what it could be trying to tell you. Express your emotions. Sometimes we're stressed out because we feel so much, but we don't have a medium or a form of release. If your feelings are locked up somewhere inside you, it can be weighing you down, stressing you out without you noticing. So let it out. Cry, laugh, sing your emotions. I had this phase where when I'd be feeling a certain way, I would just kind of sing it out, just make lyrics. It was not catchy, nothing impressive at all, but it's a way to let out the thoughts and the emotions that are inside. Speak to people. Vulnerability is such a great connector. So share that burden. You'd be surprised by how many people don't see you expressing your emotions as something that annoys them or something that slows them down. When we share our feelings, when we share our pain, when we share our successes, the people around us, they are grateful for that. Most cases, people will not hear you trying to express yourself and, stop that. Because most people who tell me that, oh no, they don't want to burden other people with how they feel, they don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, most of these people are so ready to accept others when they need to speak. So if you are this person, don't underestimate the people around you. They may be waiting for you to also share how you feel. They also want to be able to support you in the ways that you support them. Okay, next form of rest is social rest. This one depends on who you are. The introvert may be more stressed out from being in a crowd for too long. The extrovert may be more stressed out from spending too much time alone. You know who you are, you know what you need. For the introvert and the extrovert, spending too much time by yourself is not healthy. Okay, we need other people. People are medicine. We're able to help each other regulate our emotions, even if we're not saying anything to one another. Just being around people that you love, things like eye contact, things like physical contact, these somehow mysteriously release hormones that make you feel loved, that make you feel connected, that make you feel safe. I know there's an introvert who may be listening to this who does not want to participate in this, but it doesn't have to be random. The people that you want to spend time with when you need social rest are the people who make you feel safe, the people who make you laugh, the people who you don't have to be anyone else around. People who can make you forget your problems, okay, while you're being present. On the flip side, sometimes we don't need people. I know it seems like I'm talking about two extremes, but these are one and the same. Sometimes we do need to spend time by ourselves, creating distance with people who, even if it's not a bad relationship, I'm speaking about caregivers, for example, people who are responsible for others. So parents, it's not a crime to want alone time. It is healthy, okay? Sometimes you need a break from the people you're taking care of. Sometimes you need a break from children. No matter how much you love people, there are times where you might just need just a little bit of distance, just some social distancing. Social rest also extends to people who may be draining you in a very unhealthy way. People who make you feel like you have to be defensive, people who are not safe for you. You get around them, your blood pressure starts to rise, you're having palpitations, they're going to gaslight you. There are certain people who, how do I put it delicately? There are certain people who can increase your stress load, and you may need a break from these people. If it is to the level where it is extremely toxic, maybe even life-threatening, then you know that you need to cut it off, right? But in some cases, maybe you work with a certain person who, I'm looking for the best words here, a certain person who makes you unhappy. It's fair to want some distance from that, right? And that's where social rest comes in. Maybe spend some time alone, maybe spend some time with people that fill you up so that when you do have to maybe go to work, or I don't know where else you may find people who who make you feel this way, but if you can buffer out those feelings with people around you that make you feel good, that is a good balance. The fifth type of rest is sensory rest. A break from the artificial lights, a break from traffic, the sound of traffic. I remember being in Bangkok and they were doing some construction. So I don't know what it's called, but there was something drilling the ground. I'm going to remember what this word is when I'm like about to go to sleep, but there's something drilling the ground and it was making such a huge noise. It was getting on my nerves a bit. But big cities tend to feel full of sensory stimulation. And even depending on where you work, where you spend most of your time, certain environments can have higher amounts of noise pollution. And we do need a break from that. I typically recommend sensory rest for people who feel overstimulated. So keep the lights as dim as possible. When you go back home, use lamps or use candles. Avoid harsh lights from the ceilings, especially if you don't have warmer lights, if you have cooler type of lighting. Keep the volume low. If you're watching something, if you are in a space where it's not noisy, because that matters. If you live in a big city or you live in a neighborhood that is quite loud, it can be harder to achieve sensory rest. But if you have the ability to, very soft sounds, sometimes we feel uncomfortable just listening to nothing. If you're a person who always has to have some kind of background music or some kind of audio playing in the background, a podcast or a YouTube video, if you get really used to that, I would like to challenge you to give it 2 weeks, right? Take away all of the background humdrum, take away all of the busyness, and just spend time with you and see if that can reduce your overall stress load. I know I'm not the only one who feels a little bit overstimulated when I have to text multiple people at the same time. It's like having multiple conversations. It's a lot, okay? One conversation needs to begin and end, and then the next conversation can begin and end, because again, it's this pull and divide for our attention. A digital detox actually can be a great form of sensory rest, because the way content is structured sometimes, it is one short clip and another short clip and another short clip after another, and we're looking at a video of a prank, you're looking at a video of a cat, you're looking at some educational content, you scroll down, you get an ad, then the next video is a lifestyle video, and all of this in less than 5 minutes. Your brain has jumped from topic to topic to topic. I guess we might be a little bit too used to it, but I don't want to be the one to point it out, but I will. We don't know the long-term effects of this. We don't know the effects of this in 50 years' time. We don't know the effects of what this can be doing to our brains in the long haul, because we don't have studies on, like, we don't have data on people using the internet the way we use it today in the long run. But there's something about our attention being fragmented like this that I believe is putting a bigger load on our brains, a bigger load on our ability to handle stress than we might be recognizing. The sixth form of rest is creative rest. If you find yourself stuck in a cycle or a pattern, or if life feels a little bit too routine, every day feels the same, or you're seeking inspiration, something new, something fresh, if you're uninspired or unmotivated, creative rest might be the form of rest you want to dial in on. In this form of rest, you can break the circuit. You can, I wanted to say get out of the matrix, but color outside of the lines. Do something you typically don't do. Visit a new place, expose yourself to newness. It might also mean not being a consumer of content or media. So instead of watching a movie or reading a book or scrolling on the internet, using that time to put out something into the world yourself, create something, or explore an idea. Creative rest might also look like doing something creative, so writing or painting, any form of play or hobby. People are highly creative. You are too. It would be such a shame for you to not discover that aspect of yourself. If you're looking for a little spice of life, I am rooting for you. Find a thing, do something completely out of character, safely, out of character safely, and get that that spark. It's fun. I think creative rest might be one of the most fun ones because it can be quite unpredictable. The final form of rest we'll be talking about is spiritual rest. Now, if you believe that you are a spirit, or if you believe you have a spirit, this is one of the rests that you can try to incorporate a little bit more daily. There are certain spiritual practices that foster a sense of peace in you, the kind of peace that allows stability through different forms of stresses. So if you're dealing with mental stresses, if you're dealing with physical stresses, if you're dealing with emotional stresses, we spoke about different kinds of issues that people face at work, at home, in the body, in the environment, health. These can be quite stressful for humans to experience, but when we rely on our spiritual practices, when we rely on spiritual ways to rest, the stresses in life can be a bit more tolerable. Prayer, spiritual community, worship, reading scriptures, meditating, these are things that can give you a form of spiritual rest. If you believe that you are spirit, mind, and body, it's great to focus on the mind, it's great to focus on the body, but let's not neglect the spirit. That needs tending to and rest as well. And that's it. Those are the 7 kinds of rest that we'll be talking about today. I hope that you're able to find 1 or 2 that you'd like to include into your life, and possibly you were doing some kinds of rests before. Please let me know what kind of rest you'd like to add, what kind of rest you feel you've been doing all this time. The idea for this video came from one of the 1% weekly challenges that we did, the caffeine-free challenge. And because caffeine is one of the stressors of the body, I just thought, let's do this video on stress and rest. If you would like to participate in the next 1% weekly challenge, you are welcome to do so. There's a WhatsApp link below. If you would not like to join a WhatsApp group, you can stay up to date by following the Instagram or TikTok or YouTube of the 1% weekly challenge. The next challenge will be having a lighter dinner or a smaller dinner for 2 weeks. That is all. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next 2 weeks. Take care of yourself. Bye.